Every fall, we reach for the familiar boxes tucked away in closets and attics, filled with pumpkins, candles, wreaths, and tiny reminders of seasons past. Those decorations once symbolized joy and belonging, but for many of us over 60, the very items that once brought comfort can quietly create chaos. The truth is, what starts as a moment of nostalgia can slowly turn our homes into spaces that feel heavier, harder to move through, and harder to rest in. This isn't about abandoning tradition, it's about redefining it. Real warmth doesn't come from how much we display but from how freely we can move, think, and breathe in our own space. Before placing another autumn piece on a crowded shelf, pause and ask yourself, does this make my home feel peaceful or pressured? A calm fall begins with a clear space, not a cluttered one. If you're ready to bring back ease instead of excess, tap subscribe and stay with me. How early do you decorate for fall, and what will you release first this year? Meet Mave, 68, a retired librarian from the quiet hills of Vermont. She's the kind of woman whose home always smelled faintly of cinnamon and whose front porch was never without a pumpkin. Autumn was her season of joy, a time for warm hues, glowing candles, and soft blankets folded on every chair. Her shelves were lined with tiny ceramic gourds and leaf garlands that shimmered in the afternoon sun. To her, each item told a story, a memory of gatherings, laughter, and the comfort of tradition. But over time, that comfort began to blur into something heavier. What once felt like a sanctuary now felt crowded. One chilly morning, as she reached to dust her favorite mantelpiece, her foot caught on a small ceramic gourd she'd placed weeks earlier. It wobbled, rolled, and nearly sent her tumbling. Mave steadied herself, heart pounding, then looked around with new eyes. Every surface was full, tables, counters, even windowsills. I thought I was filling my home with warmth, she whispered, but I was quietly crowding out my peace. It wasn't the fall that scared her, it was realizing how close she'd come to losing the very safety her home was meant to provide. So Mave made a quiet decision. She wouldn't stop decorating, but she would begin differently. She started noticing how peace always came first. When the clutter was gone, her decor finally had room to breathe. She called her new process the declutter and decorate combos, little pairs of actions that helped her clear space, then fill it with meaning. For every candle she set out, she removed something that no longer sparked joy. For every new wreath, she let go of something that blocked light. It wasn't about downsizing, it was about aligning her surroundings with the calm she'd earned over the years. Mave's rhythm brought her balance again, reminding her that beauty isn't found in what we keep, but in what we finally make space for. Let's walk through those same gentle steps that turned her fall chaos into quiet comfort. Combo 1. The cozy trap. Declutter emotion, then add intention. Mave didn't rush into decluttering this time. She approached it with a quiet, reverent awareness. The attic wasn't just storage, it was memory layered upon memory, an archive of her life's tender chapters. Dust motes floated in the light as she opened the first box marked Autumn Joy. Inside were tokens of years gone by, her children's school crafts painted in fading oranges, garlands brittle from time, old photographs curled at the edges. Every item had a pulse, a story, a whisper of who she once was. She smiled at some, sighed at others, and then did something new. She paused long enough to feel. It struck her that she wasn't decluttering things, she was decluttering emotions she'd never released. With each object she touched, she asked softly, "Does this still reflect who I am today?" It was an act of grace, no guilt, no pressure, no shame. What remained were the pieces that still spoke to her heart, what left were those that belonged lovingly to the past. The attic, once heavy with the weight of yesterday, began to feel airy, almost alive. She found herself smiling more, her chest lighter, her breath unforced. The space she created wasn't just physical, it was emotional oxygen. When she descended the stairs that afternoon, sunlight seemed to follow her. She didn't feel emptiness, she felt expansion. The house exhaled with her. That same day, she decided to decorate not out of habit, but out of intention. She placed one amber lantern on the shelf by her reading chair, its glow soft, golden, and steady. It didn't shout for attention. It simply belonged. That small, thoughtful addition changed everything. Her living room no longer felt crowded, it felt grounded. As evening arrived, Mave sat quietly beside the lantern, realizing that real coziness isn't about how much you own but how gently you live among what remains. It's the warmth that comes when peace replaces excess. The attic, once a vault of nostalgia, had become her first lesson in emotional freedom, a reminder that light feels brightest when space allows it to shine. If you could keep only one fall decoration that truly feels like peace, what would it be? Because sometimes, one quiet glow can hold more comfort than an entire season's worth of cluttered charm. Combo 2, the safety and serenity, clear hazards, then layer comfort. Mave's second transformation began not with decor, but with awareness. The stumble she'd brushed off weeks earlier had quietly lingered in her mind. It wasn't just a trip, it was a wake-up call. That one moment revealed how the comforts she'd built over the years had slowly turned into hidden hazards. What once looked charming now carried quiet risk. Plush rugs that once cushioned her steps now shifted under her feet. Low baskets, tucked neatly by chairs, had become unseen traps. Even her favorite pumpkin display, those small ceramic ones she'd adored for decades, had formed a line across her walkway like little landmines of sentiment. That morning, she didn't reach for her decor bin or her favorite throw blanket. Instead, she brewed her tea, tied her robe tight, and walked her home as if she were a guest seeing it for the first time. Every corner held a choice, comfort or caution. "Does this make me feel secure or unsure?" she whispered. Slowly, she began reclaiming her peace. Rugs were rolled and stored, fragile trinkets relocated to safer shelves, and corners opened again. The rooms began to breathe. Sunlight found new paths across her floorboards. Even the sound of her steps, steady, unbroken, brought her quiet joy. Once the cluttered obstacles were gone, the calm came naturally. She layered comfort back in, but this time with wisdom. A single soft rug by her reading chair replaced 3 overlapping ones. She added a warm lamp near her window, its amber light turning dusk into something tender. On the wall where a crowded table once stood, she hung a dried leaf wreath, its circular shape a symbol of continuity, not chaos. The simplicity soothed her. Nothing called for her attention, everything supported her peace. Safety, she realized, isn't the opposite of beauty, it's part of it. True serenity is when your surroundings move with you, not against you. That day, she sat in her chair, tea steaming in her hand, and noticed how still her home felt, not silent, but grounded. No clutter competing for space. No corners to fear. Just ease. For the first time in years, Mave could walk freely, breathe deeply, and trust her own space again. It wasn't the end of her decorating, it was the beginning of feeling safe enough to live beautifully. When was the last time you changed one small thing at home and instantly felt lighter, steadier, safer? The next part of her journey took her into something far more emotional, the sentimental pieces her heart had never dared to confront. Combo 3, the sentimental sweep, release, then reimagine. For Mave, this combo wasn't about boxes or shelves, it was about memory itself. It began on a cool Saturday morning when the wind outside carried the faint scent of falling leaves. She climbed up to her attic, that quiet museum of her life, where every box had a heartbeat. Among them sat one labeled Grandkids Crafts, written in her careful, looping script years ago. She hesitated before opening it, almost fearing what would surface. Inside were fragments of time, paper turkeys traced from tiny hands, pine cones dipped in glitter, construction paper cards with the words "I love you," Grandma scribbled in marker. Some were cracked, some faded to the color of old sunlight. But each piece glowed with love that once filled her home with laughter and warmth. As she held them, she felt the weight of decades. She remembered the sound of her granddaughter's giggle when glue dripped on the table, her grandson's proud grin when his crooked ornament made it to the tree. The memories were still sharp, but the items had dulled, their beauty now trapped beneath dust and fragility. For years, Mave thought keeping everything meant she was keeping love alive. But standing there, surrounded by things that could no longer carry what they once did, she understood something new. Love doesn't live in objects, it lives in the stories we tell and the hearts we still hold close. So she began to let go. Not carelessly, not hurriedly, but with reverence. Each piece she touched received a soft thank you, for the joy, for the laughter, for the moment you gave me. She kept two that still made her spirit flutter, a red ceramic heart with a thumbprint pressed into the glaze, and a paper sun drawn with wobbly yellow lines. They represented not the past, but the connection still bright in her life. Back downstairs, she placed them on a wooden tray by her kitchen window. Every morning, sunlight now spills over them like a quiet blessing. The tray has become her memory spot, not cluttered, but alive with meaning. It reminds her that space, when honored, can hold love just as deeply as objects once did. If you could keep only one sentimental piece that truly makes your home feel peaceful, which would you choose? Share it in the comments. Your choice might help another senior see that letting go isn't loss, it's renewal. Stay close, because next, Mave discovers something unexpected, how the very space itself can become the most beautiful decor of all. Combo 4, the space and style. Make room, then make magic. By the time Mave reached her kitchen, she'd already faced the emotional corners of her home. The attic, the shelves, the sentimental boxes, but this space felt different. The kitchen was her comfort zone, the room where morning light met the smell of cinnamon tea and quiet radio songs. Yet even comfort, she realized, can turn heavy when it's crowded. Every inch of counter space carried something. A fall mug from a craft fair, a ceramic pumpkin, hand towels with embroidered leaves, cinnamon sticks in glass jars, and a line of knickknacks she no longer even saw. It wasn't mess, it was memory laid too thick to breathe. One morning, as she tried to clear a small corner to make breakfast, her elbow nudged a mug and it nearly shattered. That tiny sound of ceramic on counter startled her more than it should have. It was a reminder, she wasn't moving as freely as she used to, and clutter made that even riskier. She wanted her kitchen to feel warm, not walled in. So she began again, gently, just like before. With a box at her feet, Mave held each piece and asked, "Does this make me feel peaceful or pressured?" Half of it went into the box, not with regret, but with relief. When she finally looked up, she saw her countertops again, wide, open, gleaming softly in the morning light. It was as if her home had exhaled. The hum of the refrigerator and the quiet ticking of the clock sounded louder now, clearer, almost like music. The stillness wasn't empty, it was restorative. Then came the part she loved most, decorating with purpose. On one end of the counter, she placed a single caramel-scented candle. Its flame flickered gently, carrying a warmth that filled the room without crowding it. Beside it, a small wicker basket of crisp red apples, not plastic, not ornamental, but real and alive. The kind of decor that invites you to touch, taste, and live in the moment. Her kitchen no longer shouted fall, it whispered it. Every detail felt intentional, every item had space to breathe. That evening, as the candle glowed against the fading daylight, Mave realized her kitchen had transformed from busy to balanced. She could move freely, see clearly, and most of all, feel safe and centered. For the first time in years, the space didn't feel like a display, it felt like home. Try clearing just one countertop today. Notice how it shifts your mood, your breathing, even your thoughts. The calm that comes from space is deeper than any seasonal decor. And just when Mave thought her journey with clutter was complete, she discovered something even more profound, that peace isn't just about what you own, but how you choose to see your surroundings. Combo 5. The emotional energy, clear visual noise, then create calm. By now, Mave's home was neat, safe, and sentimental in all the right ways. Yet one quiet afternoon, as sunlight filtered through her living room window, she realized something felt loud. Not from noise, from color. Every wall, shelf, and tabletop vibrated with patterns and brightness. Deep reds, metallic golds, checkered plaids, and glittered garlands competed for attention, leaving her eyes wandering restlessly. For decades, she had equated bold color with life, with family gatherings, laughter, and the nostalgia of busy autumns. But at 68, she longed for something gentler. She didn't want her home to announce itself, she wanted it to breathe with her. That day, she poured a cup of tea and sat still for a long moment, watching how her space made her feel. The longer she looked, the more she sensed a truth she had ignored for years. A home can be clean but still cluttered, cluttered with visual noise, overstimulation, and color that pulls instead of soothes. She wanted her environment to reflect her inner rhythm now, slower, wiser, more intentional. So Mave began another gentle edit. She started with the brightest pieces, the shiny pumpkins, plaid throws, and crimson ribbons that once symbolized excitement. Carefully, she boxed them away, saving only a few that truly felt warm rather than loud. The emptier the shelves became, the calmer the room felt. Then came the magic part, the reimagining. She leaned into nature's subtler tones, warm caramel, soft beige, rusted orange, and quiet gold. She draped a light linen runner over her dining table, added a vase of dried wheat, and replaced her glittered candles with smooth beeswax ones that flickered softly like a heartbeat. The change was instant but profound. The air seemed to settle, the walls felt softer, and her mind finally stopped scanning every corner. In that stillness, Mave noticed how peace could be designed, not with abundance, but with awareness. Her home no longer shouted, "Look at me." It simply whispered, "Rest here." When friends visited, they didn't comment on what was gone, they marveled at how peaceful it felt. That's when she realized she had created a sanctuary, not just a season. Her fall decor didn't try to impress anymore, it embraced. What fall color calms you the most? Rust, gold, or deep green? Share it below, and let's uncover the tones that bring ease instead of energy. Because as Mave would soon discover, peace doesn't just come from what we change, it's found in the quiet connection between space, spirit, and self. Combo 6. The social space, uncrowed, then welcome. For decades, Mave's living room had been her favorite room, her proud creation, the place where every memory of laughter, story, and comfort seemed to live. It was filled with richness, patterned armchairs, carved coffee tables, glowing lanterns, and layers of seasonal decorations collected over the years. Each piece carried meaning, each object a story she wasn't ready to part with. Her home had become her scrapbook, cozy, familiar, and deeply hers. But slowly, without realizing it, that same warmth began to crowd her. The room that once felt like an embrace now pressed inward. Chairs bumped against tables, books overlapped on every surface, and her grandkids' play space had quietly vanished beneath the weight of nostalgia. The truth arrived one evening, not with words, but with a thud. Her grandson tripped over a decorative stool tucked near the fireplace. He wasn't hurt, but Mave was shaken. As she helped him up, her eyes scanned the room, really seeing it for the first time. Every corner overflowed with care, but also with clutter. I built this space to hold love, she thought, but now it's holding too much of everything else. The realization was gentle, not guilty, a call to make room for life again. So Mave began the process with care. She started by removing the oversized armchair that blocked the flow between rooms, the ornate coffee table that left barely any walking space, the baskets and candles that cluttered her corners. With each piece gone, the energy shifted. It wasn't emptiness she felt, it was breath. The room seemed to stretch, to sigh in relief. The sunlight that filtered through her window now traveled further, illuminating the hardwood floors that had been hidden for years. When the clearing was done, Mave approached decor differently. She wanted her home to invite presence, not performance. She placed a simple wooden bowl, hand-carved and fragrant with cinnamon-scented pine cones, at the center of her newly bare table. The scent carried warmth, but the simplicity carried meaning. It became her quiet invitation to gather. The following weekend, her grandchildren arrived. This time, they didn't hesitate. They ran, twirled, built forts with pillows, and laughed without fear of knocking anything over. Her friends noticed, too. Conversation flowed more easily, chairs pulled closer, nothing to navigate or apologize for. Mave realized that hospitality doesn't come from how much you display, but how freely people can move, rest, and belong. That evening, as twilight deepened and laughter softened into hums of contentment, Mave looked around and felt something she hadn't felt in years: lightness. Her living room wasn't just decluttered, it was renewed, reborn as a place where love could stretch out without bumping into anything. Who do you decorate for most, yourself, or the people you love to gather with? Maybe the truest decor is the space you give others to simply be. Next, Mave faced her most emotional corner yet, the one where memory met meaning. Combo 7. The Memory Corner. Sort, then celebrate. Mave had always been the family historian, the quiet heart who remembered what everyone else forgot. Every fall, she promised herself she'd go through the boxes stacked in her den, each one labeled with careful handwriting: Autumn 1983, Thanksgiving 2001, Grandkids Crafts. They sat there like time capsules, whispering of days that once felt endless. But what began as preservation slowly turned into postponement. The memories she meant to honor were now hidden under layers of dust and sentiment, locked away from the life she was still living. One cool morning, with cinnamon tea steaming beside her, Mave finally began. She opened the first box and found photographs that smelled faintly of cedar and nostalgia, her children raking leaves, her husband laughing over a burnt pie, her younger self in bright orange sweaters. Some photos were worn, some duplicates, some blurred. But every single one held a trace of love. She sorted them gently, keeping a few, digitizing others for her family, and releasing the rest. She whispered thank you before placing each item in its new place, treating the act not as loss but liberation. The crafts came next, little paper turkeys and painted pine cones her grandkids once made with sticky fingers. Many had faded, but the joy they represented hadn't. She kept two, framing them in a simple wooden frame. The rest she gave away to a local preschool that loved seasonal art, a gesture that made her smile wider than she expected. With the clutter gone, she looked at the space that remained, open, bright, and humming softly with possibility. She placed a cozy armchair near the window, laid a plaid throw across its arm, and added a small side table with a warm caramel candle. On the wall above, she hung a framed leaf print that seemed to glow when morning sunlight hit it. This was no longer a corner of storage, it was her reflection nook, a place to read, remember, and breathe. Now, each evening, Mave sits there with her tea and journal. Sometimes she reads old letters aloud, sometimes she writes new memories, but always she feels the quiet satisfaction of having honored her past while embracing her present. The corner became her calm, a reminder that joy doesn't need to be stacked in boxes to be kept, it just needs space to live again. If you could design one peaceful corner for yourself this fall, where would it be? Porch, living room, or bedroom? The last step was where everything came together, the moment calm finally returned. Combo 8. The mindful finish: breathe, then beautify. When the final box was folded flat and the faint scent of old paper drifted away, Mave simply stood in the quiet of her living room. She didn't reach for another candle, didn't adjust a throw pillow, didn't plan the next project. She just stood still, breathing in a kind of air that felt almost new, light, clean, and alive. Her eyes followed the soft path of afternoon sunlight sweeping across the floorboards, and she realized it had been years since she truly noticed her home without distraction. It wasn't the decorations that made it beautiful, it was the space between them. The silence itself had become a form of grace. For decades, Mave's rhythm had been motion, decorating, rearranging, adding, fixing. But now, stillness was her new act of creation. She sat down, closed her eyes, and listened. The slow hum of the heater, the gentle tick of the wall clock, the faint echo of her own heartbeat. For seniors, she thought, life can feel so full of noise, appointments, reminders, memories, all pressing in at once. But this calm, this breathing space, was something entirely different. It was the sound of returning to herself. She looked around the room one more time. The walls no longer crowded her, they seemed to hold her. Every cleared surface told a story of intention, not what she removed, but what she chose to keep. The difference was energy. Where there had once been clutter, now there was clarity. Where there had been distraction, now there was devotion. Finally, Mave walked to her front door. She lifted a simple wreath, hand-woven with eucalyptus, acorns, and soft beige leaves. No glitter, no ribbons, no excess. She hung it carefully, feeling the cool metal of the door handle steady under her palm. The wreath wasn't there for others to admire. It was for her, a daily whisper that peace doesn't come from filling space, but from honoring it. She stepped back and smiled. The house no longer felt unfinished. It felt alive, content, ready for whatever seasons would come next. The clutter was gone, but what remained was memory, meaning, and balance, the quiet triumph of less. If you're watching this on a Thursday, make it your clear corner day. One space, one breath, one change. Start small, start soft, but start. because every breath of peace begins with a single cleared moment of courage. Mave didn't stop decorating, she started living lighter. The woman who once believed more pumpkins meant more warmth discovered that true comfort begins in open space, in breathing room, in gentle restraint. Her home no longer overflowed with festive clutter. Instead, it whispered calm, each corner holding only what mattered. Every season since has felt safer, freer, and more joyful, not because she stopped loving decor, but because she started loving herself enough to live without the weight of excess. The shift was quiet but profound. Her mornings began differently. Instead of waking to chaos and the guilt of unfinished organizing, she now moved through her home with ease. She could see her floors, her shelves, her life, clearly. Friends who visited noticed it immediately. "It feels peaceful here," one said, sitting by the window where sunlight now spilled unblocked across the wooden floor. Her grandchildren could play freely again, running through hallways that once felt too full to move through. She didn't need more seasonal displays to celebrate fall. The beauty was already alive in the crisp air, the scent of cinnamon, the soft crackle of a candle flame. Mave learned that letting go didn't mean losing memories. It meant keeping only what carried love forward. Every time she cleared, she gained something invisible yet essential: mental space, emotional clarity, and spiritual calm. The lesson spread beyond her home. Her days became lighter, her thoughts clearer. She noticed she slept better, laughed easier, and even spent less time worrying about appearances. For seniors like Mave, and maybe like you, this isn't just about decor, it's about reclaiming peace from the noise of too much. It's about realizing that calm doesn't come from perfection but from presence. Clearing first doesn't take away from beauty, it prepares space for it. It's an invitation to slow down, to breathe deeper, to make every object, every season, every breath mean something. What's one thing you're ready to release before you decorate this fall? If Mave's story inspired you, like this video, share it with someone who loves fall but needs room to breathe, and subscribe to Wise Aging Seniors, where every season is a lesson in calm, clarity, and courage.